We're good.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Page, Valley, Painter, Wolfensberger,
Here.
Cummings, here, Rapp,
Yes.
So, we're going down to public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to present anything for public comment? If you do, make sure you sign in with your name and address and stand up and put your name and address. I'll just tell it to you.
Tyler Marsh, I was here last, meeting, I was still on, West Briarcliff. There's a couple things, some people know that I've been coming up to me and they've asked a lot of questions about the parks and wanted to get stuff fixed at the park, specifically over, I think it's called Dining Club Park. There's been, things have been broke over there for over a year. I didn't know that, and I don't think the kids that much, we usually go to the new one, but, so just, people are wondering what the village does on a regular basis to replace stuff at the park. Is it just we call in and it gets fixed? Does the village, employees, do they go over it and look at it and see what needs to be replaced, or how does that process go through? And then next, I know last week they talked about solar and stuff like that. I'm just hoping that the board doesn't vote on it tonight to go one way or the other. I'd like to see personally more bids than just one company. I'd like to see bigger companies. I'd like to see other options other than just like what it would be like if we leased it and had no ties to it whatsoever. And what our recourse would be with that versus buying it and maintenance and stuff like that. Because I mean, you know, if we're having trouble maintaining other stuff, I don't see how you're gonna allocate without hiring more employees to take care and maintain all that, with what we have now. Here's one more. Oh, and then just, and I'm not visiting what I said last time. I just hope that with the property that was donated, that I know it's getting closer to planting season, and I just hope that that's been approved for the FFA to farm. I know that we kind of talked that maybe it was their intention, but it hasn't been for sure said yet. So I was making sure that the FFA did have the ability to farm that this year.
So, we're talking about not just that property, but also the property north of the service plan as well.
Yeah.
And, I am talking with them, and we'll have some type of formal agreement, like as an intergovernmental agreement with them. Before, you know, whenever you're not a government entity, you can just kind of have more of a looser arrangement, or we'll have some sort of arrangement with the high school to do that. But they're expecting to do it, and wanting to do it, we just gotta formalize it, so I'm hopeful next meeting, we'll have that knocked out. But then, your question on the parks equipment, so when you have a concern or something like that, it is always helpful to call and let us know.
Yeah.
But we are having our insurance company come out this spring, and they're gonna walk through and identify safety issues with us. But then we do things on a periodic basis a lot of times. So if you see something, please let us know. We'll look into it and do what we can do.
And ultimately, we do rely on public works to, they should be keeping an eye on some of those things too, if things get broken or, but yeah, families are out there with their kids, probably know it maybe before our guys do, but, but yeah, always love it, you know. I appreciate you. What's broken, you know?
I know there was a slide and there was like a swing. Like I said, I personally don't go to that park just because it's farther away from me to go. But
It's the blue line between happy and smaller. area and the larger area on the big part.
We're talking about the sports complex.
No, Dinosaur Park.
What's the unusual?
Craft, or is it all the way to? Oh, my
And
God.
on one side there's plywood, on the bigger side there's a piece of plywood, like drilled in, on the other side there's nothing.
There's nothing, so like someone can just,
Yep, so it's like, I don't know.
I have no idea.
The fall.
right, that's still. Besides the creek. Kind of get up there, something, because I noticed, yeah.
There was some flag here a while back, and I think that went to the sports complex, but it always takes a long time to order, something like that, but that was repaired, but this sounded like that. New. But you're absolutely right, somebody reported,
Yeah, that's why, is there anything else about that there that you know?
They also
That's a
said
slide.
they also said the tunnel was broken.
Like cracked or, you know?
I have no idea. I just, they said it was broken. They were wondering if it could be assessed and fixed.
And on the solar, we've been going over the solar for 6+ months, so we're looking at every possibility. We're looking at everything. And our decision coming up is not to go with a particular company. Our decision coming up is to lease it or to buy it. And then at that point, we'll get bid either way. So,
They have some samples, or a sample of the lease and what it costs and everything. Out of the Google Drive and stuff that we get. Okay, you don't see it.
Yeah. So, and when you say lease, you mean they lease the lot property from you and they're maintaining everything?
Yeah, we have no responsibility for that.
Actually, it's more referred to as the European building beliefs, it's the PPA, power purchase agreement.
so you lock in for 30 years and they sell you, they just basically become your landlord. Plus you still have an amber bill and you don't get any of the incentives, which is about $1 million. So, I mean,
So, yeah, I the incentives, obviously, if the government follows through, we never know that anymore, but, have we put that up against like what our interest rate would be and what the maintenance would be, is it? And it's
there
still,
isn't very much maintenance when it comes to people. Other than chemo or.
so no,
But they did put maintenance stuff in there. They had inverters being replaced after, I don't know, if it was 10 years or something like that. They were planning on an inverter being bad or something like that. And so they did build it into the comparison between the two.
and we get another, if we own them, we get another derecho and they all ruins all of them. Is our insurance premiums, what's that go up to?
Well, that was in that,
That's all in there.
Oh, that-
that's too.
Yeah, I'd love, yeah, that's visible on the web, I'd love that.
If you go back to the previous packet, the February 13th packet, there'll be title on there. And if you have any issues finding it, you're welcome to call me and help me find it.
If there's nothing else, are you here just for your scout? Yeah, yeah, I think the neighbor kind of, I know you were here. So, all right, thank you, we'll move on, first thing on the agenda is the consent agenda, there's, several items, there's minutes, we have your executive session minutes, let's take care of those, just bring them back into the show, bills, and there's two, special event applications, one for the IBEW tournament, and then the other is for the fourth Monday, so, is there any questions in regards to the consent agenda? If not,
I just had a correction or a possible correction to the minutes. For Mike's title, it says AD, but I wonder if that could say, I've never noticed if it was there before, so my bad. What can it, like, IT? Sure. Can I leave it on that one and just change it going forward? Yeah, that's fine. I'm good with that. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
If there's nothing else, is there a motion to approve? On the consent agenda.
I know we just do the consent agenda.
Second. Page? Yes. Painter?
Yes.
Wolferter?
Yes.
Cummings? Yes. Rapp?
yes,
Joe, did I send one of those to you? This copy is closed,
Yes.
one sign, please.
I'll look.
Okay, not, I'll get one for you,
Okay.
that's what I think, right?
Yeah, everyone's good.
I think there's 9 copies, because I was gonna give one to Mark to look at. You have to hand that first.
Right, first thing on our new business is our audit. We have a presentation from our new auditors, and they are going to do that on Zoom. So, I presume they are there.
Yes.
Courtney,
Yes,
welcome.
thank you. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Courtney Moore. I am one of the audit principals at Lauterbach and Amen, and I'm here to present the April 30th, 2023 audited financial statements for the Village of St. Joseph. Before I get started, I did want to say a huge thank you to Joe, Debbie, and Ashley for all their help in getting everything pulled together for the audit. Especially in a first-year rotation of auditors, it does take a lot of extra work outside of the scope of their regular job duties to not only prepare for the audit, but to also help bring it to the final bound copy that you see in front of you today. So, Joe, thank you, Ashley, and Debbie for all of your help. The purpose of an audit is for us to perform various tests and procedures on your financial statements to ultimately form an opinion. We did give the village an unmodified opinion. It is also known as a clean opinion. It is the highest opinion that we can give. It states that the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects, and we can rely on the internal control environment of the organization. Additionally, in our SAS 114 letter, which is our communication to those charged with governance, we noted that we did not have any difficulties or disagreements with management throughout the process. So I did want to touch on just a few key financial highlights for the year. The audit report is the bound copy with your logo on the front, and your financial statements start on page 4. So on that page, you'll see your statement of net position, which are your total assets, liabilities, and ending net position for both governmental activities and business type activities. At year end, you had a total ending net position of about $7.7 million across both governmental and business type activities. Of that 7.7, about 3.6 million of that is your net investment in capital assets. So the assets that the village owns, less any related accumulated depreciation, makes up that number. You have a couple restricted property tax levies, ESDA and streets and highways, which are pulled out separately so you can see those restricted dollars within your ending net position. And the remaining 3.7 is unrestricted and can meet the future needs of the village as you deem fit. When you turn the page, the statement of activities does cover 2 pages, and I am looking at page 6, where you kind of see that ending net position and the change from last year to this year. So that ending 7.7 was an increase from last year of about $909,000. So this was an increase in both governmental activities and business type activities. Past that, you have your fund financial statements, which is really kind of the main way that the village operates and the way that you budget. So I always like to call out the general fund since that is the main operating fund of the village. And your ending fund balance there was about $2.5 million. Similarly, you'll see pieces pulled out for restricted and committed, and the remaining 2.2 million can meet the future needs as you deem fit. Your statement of revenues and changes in fund balance is on page 9, and you'll see total revenues and expenses for your general motor fuel tax and community park bond. And you'll see that in your general fund, that was an increase this year from 2.3 to about 2.5, so about a $260,000 increase in your general fund balance. You'll see there was an increase in your MFT fund as well, and a decrease in your community park bond fund. Past the financial statements, we have the notes to the financial statements, which really explain everything and anything you may need to know about the preceding financial statements. One thing that I did want to point out was on page 37 and 38, you have a 10-year trend of your IMRF fund. So you'll see starting from 12/31/2015 all the way through 12/31/2022. What I wanted to point out was that your planned net position, your net pension liability, was an asset last year of about $178,000 and changed to a liability of $84,000. We saw this across multiple villages, park districts, practically everybody that we work with, basically due to a change in assumption and change in interest rates from last year to this year. So in your audit from last year, that wasn't technically a net pension asset, and this year it is a net pension liability. So that kind of is the breakdown that gives you a little bit more information into that. The other bound document that you have in front of you, the smaller one that's only about 5 pages, is the management letter. This is a required document that comes out of our audit, and it lays out our suggestions of any policies, procedures, or anything else that may have come up throughout the process of the audit. Numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 sound a little bit scarier than they actually are. So GASB is the governing body of the way your financial statements are supposed to be presented. And occasionally they come out with pronouncements just to kind of make the financial statements a little bit easier to understand to the external user. We put these comments in the management letter just so you know that we are aware that these are coming up, and we will work with you to get them implemented as necessary. So they're really just an FYI. They're not any sort of black mark on your organization. So I always like to mention, the purpose of those and what those mean. The last one is related to a fund balance policy. It's really a best practice policy that we recommend for the organization, and it is in line with GASB 54. And it essentially helps determine a target fund balance to meet the needs of the village should anything go wrong. So kind of holding off a percentage of expenses or determining a percentage of total expenses that you would need for a couple of months, and making sure you kind of have that amount in your fund balance in case, revenues are low or, something were to happen throughout the fiscal year that you wouldn't expect. So with all of that being said, I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have on the audit report, the management letter, or the audit in general.
I have a question. With that, fund balance policy, can you give us a recommendation on what that percentage might be, to help us to come up with that number?
Yeah, so we have a policy template that we like to share with our clients. So I'll make sure that gets over to Joe so that he can review that and bring that to you guys. And within the policy template, it does have suggestions of a total percentage or a number of months. We typically see about 15%, about 3 months of the total year to be held aside just in case.
Thank you.
I've got a question. Can you hear me?
It's a little mumbly. I can kind of make it out though, so.
It's just me. And that's on page 26 when it talks about debt service requirements maturity.
Mhm.
Is that reference to the sports complex? I mean, I'm looking at this, it looks like it's being paid off in 2025, but it shows all the principal and interest and everything for 2030. If you could clarify that for me, I'd appreciate it.
Yep. So in the debt service requirements to maturity, it shows all of your general obligation bonds and installment contracts that are due. So this takes your total repayment schedule and splits it out by fiscal year of when you'll finish it. So due to the timeline of your fiscal year end and when payments are due, that's really kind of where that fiscal year piece comes into play.
Well, then,
I mean, I can understand that, but when you had nothing for 2026 through 2030,
Mhm.
what's that representative of?
So those are zeros. And the reason why we have 2026 through 2030 is because we have to show the GO bond and the business type activity. So in your water and sewer funds, we have principal and interest that go all the way through 2030. But the other two in your governmental activities only go till 2024 and 2025.
Okay.
They have them divided up from the sewer plant and the park bond.
Okay.
So-
I just assumed the park bond, and that's what, trying to figure out what the rest of it was.
Yeah, now that, if you look at the top, it kind of differentiates makes the difference between the two funds.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then on the next page will be on 25. Does that, our debt margin is 7.18, that's the total according to the calculation. That's a maximum debt that we should be able to accrue.
Correct. Based on your tax levy EAV, and then only general obligation bonds are taken into consideration for that calculation. So that's where that 7.1 comes from.
Okay, all right, that'll do for now. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions? No? All right, I don't see any other questions. I appreciate, you did a great job going through all the details. So thank you very much. We're happy to have you as our new auditors and look forward to working with you in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. We really appreciate working with you guys and looking forward to our continued relationship.
Thank you.
Take care.
That's awesome. Thank you.
All right, next item on our agenda is we have a presentation this evening. And Eric?
Yes.
Okay, Eric is with, a waste hauling GFL, correct?
Environmental, correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So anyway, I will turn it over to you to give your presentation and.
Okay, thank you. And I approached the city administrator, building administrator about coming, and he said, if you come, please just explain to folks how these contracts work and why they're different than what you have now. You're a community that folks get to pick who they want as their garbage hauler and a subscription service. And that's one of line of business that we don't have in this community. But we also have another line of business of municipal contracts, and that's what I'm over. I have 78 municipal contracts in the state of Illinois, a couple over in Missouri. Biggest one in this area is up in Rantoul. And so I just want to explain how those work and why municipal contracts make sense to communities. And so first off, who am I with GFL Environmental? We're the 4th largest waste hauling company in North America. We're based in Ontario. We're in 27 states in the United States. In Illinois, our headquarters in Peoria. That's where I work out of. We have hauling operations around the state. The one in this area is in Champaign County. Up near Thomasboro, we take the garbage to the Clinton landfill, and recycling that we pick up makes its way over to Pekin, Illinois, where we process it. And as I said, we have a lot of municipal contracts. The biggest one is Peoria, Illinois, where we pick up 38,000 houses a week. The smallest city contract that I have is Ellisville, Illinois, 33 homes. And sometimes the smaller the town, the thicker the politics, and that can take as much as my time as I spend on Peoria. But all good stuff. This is just a map of, we have landfills. Those are the tractors up there in Clinton, a couple up in the Peoria area, one from Pike County. And in our industry, the trucks go around, pick garbage up, and we want to feed our landfills. So that's why our spread for our hauling operations is a lot bigger around those circles. And then I said there in Pekin, we have a recycling processing center in Clinton. For stuff around here, we bring the recycling to the Clinton MRF, Material Recovery Facility. We put it in a big truck, and we haul that truck to Pekin, Illinois, and process it. Let's see. So the biggest difference I try to explain to folks is when you have a municipal contract, you have all those people in the crowd buying in bulk. And when you're a subscription customer, it is you and the company, whether it's me or Waste Management or a mom and pop, it's a one-on-one relationship. And so buying power with a contract is like going to Costco in many ways. You buy in bulk and you have buying power when you're all together and you're all part of the same program. And so those are the contracts that I deal with, the folks that, buy as a group. In Rantoul, I think there's 3,500, 3,600 people in the contract that we have up there. Let's see, some of the differences when it's a contract, many times it's billed through the city on the water bill, the garbage service. It's a flat price each month. You pay us based on how many folks you have. So if it's $20 a month and you have 100 houses, it's $2,000 a month you send us. If it's 101 houses and it's $20 a month, it's $2,020. And so that's how that works. That fee's quite a bit less than when it's a subscription customer. And as I said, the price is guaranteed. These contracts that we have are typically 5 years. And in each year, there's a cost of living adjustment. 3 to 4% is right now what they are at. When you're a subscription customer, and on your right, we bill you quarterly in advance. We send you a bill once every 3 months directly. We're like the airlines in that we tack on fees. There's a fuel charge, it's an administrative fee, environmental fee. You can come up with, we're going to add it on there. And there really isn't any guarantee in pricing. And the other side of that is that the customer can fire us at any time. They can shop around, they can hire who they want. And so, and when there's subscription service, there's a lot of people in the community that don't have service. They share service. At the end of the day, the hauler is gonna take it out of there, so, and there's people that, have no service at all. Who's paying for that? Everybody else, and so that helps increase the cost for the individual, person. And when it's a contract, and you have 1,200 homes, all 1,200 people are part of it, and the collection side of what we're doing isn't an obstacle, isn't a risk. When it's a subscription side, it's typical about 10% of our customers don't pay us. We're the last to get paid when somebody's in financial difficulty. And by the time we figure out we've not been paid in a series of bills, and we get that to the route supervisor, who gets it to the driver, who gets them to read the sheet and not pick the people up, it can be 6 months going by. And we picked up folks. And so it's hard to get the money. Well, that risk isn't there when it's a contract. So everybody's part of the program. Many times if it's on a water bill, everybody's paying. Another benefit is in the differences, services that you get. I'm going to go up the other way. When it's a city contract, we're going to give everybody a 95-gallon cart. Going to get every other week recycling, a bulky item pickup each year, so it's not extra to come pick up the mattresses. We'll do that for free at some point. In the contracts that we have, the services and all the city-owned buildings or village-owned buildings are free and included. Village Hall, Public Works, the parks. If you have a festival or anything like that, those things are all going to be included. We're going to figure out what those costs are and put them in that per unit price. So everybody's paying for those costs, and the municipality gets the benefit of the free service by having that contract. When it's a subscription service, many times carts aren't involved. We don't provide recycling most of the time unless you pay a lot extra. We're going to charge you $30 or $40 if you put out a mattress on a week. The municipality is going to pay for all the services that they have. And when it's a bad day, when the weather hits in Central Illinois, the trucks break down, the guy's calling sick, the customer that's going to get the priority that day is going to be the big contract customer as opposed to the individual customer. That's the sad reality of the business that we're in. It's hard to get people to do this kind of work. It's hard, it's smelly, it's not easy. So we're moving to automated equipment to make, where they use a joystick to empty the cart, keep them safer, and get these young folks to do this job for a longer period of time. Road impact. If you live on a cul-de-sac and you're a subscription town, you have 3 houses on that cul-de-sac with 3 different haulers and 3 different garbage trucks using the road. That's more wear and tear. We're the biggest, toughest on the roads vehicle that comes into a community because we're so big and heavy. When it's a contracted town and everybody has the same hauler, it's typically one truck picking up all the garbage on one day and coming back to the landfill to get the recycling. Everybody gets the same cart. So in a neighborhood, when you all have the same cart, 95-gallon with a lid on wheels, it's like Catholic school uniforms. It looks the same. You're very uniform in a neighborhood. In the subscription program, there's all kinds of materials, cans, boxes, bags that are out there on pickup day and more likely to, it's a windy day, have a mess. And so that's a benefit of having a contract and everybody having that uniformity. And as I said, if you have 3 different haulers, they might pick it up on 3 different days, unless they're really good at working together. And so like in Champaign, I think there's 8 haulers. There's garbage out on some streets all kinds of days a week. And in Peoria, where it's organized in a contract, one part of town sets their garbage out on Monday, another section of town puts it on Tuesday. It all gets picked up with one truck in that part of town. What else do I have up here? So customer service. When you're a customer with a contract, you still call our customer service line, but there is government oversight because we have a contract with you. So if the resident calls you, it's not good because you can call the village administrator, who can call me, and then I can go to operations. That's a great extra layer of protection for your service level. And in our contracts, it says if we're not doing our job, you can fire us. We're going to try to make sure we're doing our job, but that language is in there. When you're a subscription customer, and you're having an issue with your billing or your service, you're going to call customer service, and that's really your only other option is firing us and hiring somebody else. So the contract gives you a little higher level of customer service and the ability to get behind the scenes as to what's going on at the company when something is amiss. We're not perfect. We rely on people and heavy equipment, and both of those things can disappoint us time to time. So communication is helpful in those regards. So if you're interested, we'd love to see you put your community out to bid. You would want to include the number of houses that you have, what kind of service you want, which would be like weekly trash in a cart, every other week recycling, annual cleanup, free service for your buildings with different haulers that would be interested in your town, would want to know what services you want, if you have festivals, free community events of any kind. And if you're going to collect the fee yourself and pay us, that's going to help lower the price. We do the billing in some contracts, but we need, with that responsibility of collecting the money, an ordinance that says everybody has to participate, because we're going to bid it based on everybody being part of the program, going from house to house to house to house to pick up the garbage. And in a subscription, service, you're going to one house and then the driver's looking at the log and going 5 more houses down, picking up that one and then driving to that one. But when it's one town and one truck, he's going house to house to house to house. So those efficiencies help us drive down the cost of what a contract is and the cost that comes with it. That's my presentation. I hope you consider something like that. I know you're a beautiful town. I would be the only one interested in putting in a bid. I'm sure you'll get a lot of response and good response.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask you a couple?
Yeah, please.
What kind of a cost are you talking about per house compared to, I mean,
What are you paying now?
whatever, about 35 a month?
Yeah, probably $18. That would include weekly trash, every other week recycling, bulky item cleanup, free service at all the city buildings. All those benefits that we talked about.
And then you said customer service. Now, where's your customers? Is it US based? Because I don't want to be talking.
No, we have a pool of people at our office in Peoria.
Okay.
There's probably 15 of them there. And then in our office up near Thomasboro for the Grand Tool Group, there's a couple of folks there that would take the call initially, but if they're on the line, it's going to bounce to Peoria. And those folks in Peoria have a list of all my contracts, because they're all different, what they cover, what they don't, and they would be responsive for those calls.
When you talked about billing, you said, is there a discount for billing through the city? Because it would go out in a sewer bill.
Correct.
With us.
Yeah, it's worth anywhere from 50 cents per unit to $1.50 per unit, depending on what kind of economic condition you folks are in. The more transient a community, when we're doing the billing, the harder it is for us to get paid. So it's worth more. It's worth $1.50. If you have a good paying community, we collect the bill in Washington, Illinois, and reminds me of your community. There's not a lot of risk. Everybody pays their bill.
Okay, and the
And
question,
we'd be dealing with the same people that you are that don't pay the bill. So you'd be able to tell me here, we have about 10 people that we deal with.
okay, and from the city standpoint, let's just say somebody, we've had with sewer bills back up, they don't pay that. Are we still paying you, or at some point you say, hey, these people aren't paid? We'll look about the
Yeah,
collection.
we're still gonna charge you by that number, let's say it's 1,200.
Mhm.
And then once a year, we can adjust that. Typically, the city, so we're gonna still gonna pick them up. We're still gonna get paid unless you tell us not to pick them up, but typically turning off the water changes that stance. But yeah, we're gonna get paid, and what communities do that are collecting the bill is if I'm charging 18 per house, you're gonna charge 19 or 19.50.
Okay,
And so you're getting $1.50 administrative fee that will come each month from every home that you collect from. That builds a little pool to cover for the people that are bad and haven't paid. And in Beardstown, Illinois, P.D. Rook is the clerk. He's built a $40,000 slush fund. It's not a good word, but that's what it is. From the administrative fee, because after a while, it's a fixed cost. It's all in there. And so as our prices go up, he's collecting enough that he doesn't raise it every year, but he's put money aside, and then he sends the council to the Illinois Municipal League meetings and uses that money for that kind of stuff. But that's how in Leroy, they franchise the residential trash and the commercial. And they charge it, we bid it low against Republic to win it. And then they charge a fee, it might be as much as 10% what we're charging on top of that. And it's a revenue stream for the city of Leroy from the commercial and the residential aspect. And these people are still getting a lower rate than if they were just gonna farm it out individually, who they want.
and how the billing, say like you had somebody that put a mattress out for you, and you took it and you said, well, I'm gonna charge you X amount of dollars.
Yeah, I'm not gonna take that mattress and week to week pickup unless they call ahead of time.
Well, but
Make it
it could be anything, say an extra bag there.
So what we're gonna want is it in the cart weekly, unless you call ahead of time and say, I'm gonna have a mattress, and I'm gonna, well, that's gonna be another $30. I'm gonna collect that now, put it in a work order, that'll go to the driver. So when he goes to 123 Main Street, he's gonna see the cart and the mattress, and he'll grab it. If the mattress is just sitting there, and it's not bulky item cleanup week, which we'll do once a year, where they can put that up for free, we're not gonna pick it up unless we have a prior arrangement with the resident.
Okay, what if just an extra bag, trash bag?
We're gonna want it in the cart. We'd rather the resident got a second cart for another $2.50 a month on top of the $18. So they have 2 carts, and they put it, they have 6 kids. That's 190 gallons of storage. That should be plenty, but no, in this day and age, we're gonna use automated equipment. We want to keep the driver in the truck using a joystick to pull up, grab that can, put it down. Otherwise, you're gonna park the truck, pick up a seatbelt, do all the safety stuff, get out, grab the bag, put it in. I'm gonna bid this where to drive down the price, where we're gonna go from house to house to house, where it's uniform in the cart, pick it up.
Okay, well, I mean, I can see somebody, let's say they got a box and TV or an appliance came in, and they can't get that in their cart, it's.
So you're asking to break that box down and get your recycle cart and pick it up and but yeah, we don't want you just set it out there. We want it in the cart. We want to keep the guy in the truck based on how I'm gonna bid this
Okay,
How big are the recycle carts?
thing. 95 gallons,
Same thing as the
Yeah.
other one. So then you gotta have 2 of those sitting in your house.
if you want.
So we do a yearly trash day where we get these dumpsters and people throw all this stuff in. Would that be the equivalent of what you're offering?
Yeah, and we could do that instead. That is a less expensive fee or cost for us than the curbside pickup. And so we could bring 8 roll-offs or whatever, 4 at a time, whatever you needed for that kind of application. And that would it'd be a less cost, because going house to house and picking everybody up means we're gonna send 2 trucks, 4 guys. There's more chance they're gonna get hurt, stuck, whatever.
do like house to house.
Yeah, that's an option too. That costs a little more. And for big
But that's
stuff,
all included in the bid.
yeah.
Yeah,
yes.
so our bid, whatever you say, if it ends up being $25 a month or whatever, that would be something that we pay a lot of money for to do, but that would be included in your
Yes.
bid, even if it was not come up here, but on May 18th, you put out your big bulky items and we're gonna take it.
Right.
Is
And
it one
it's-
item or is it? however
6
many
cubic
items?
yards of material, so 3 foot by 3 foot by 18 feet, couch, a love seat. It's, if I explain that, about what you can get in 2 8-bed trucks, 2 8-foot trucks. And for your question, a lot of times like in Morton, where we have automated equipment, we have a roll off or an 8-yard dumpster that sits out all the time. It's actually, we have an office there, but in other communities, we do it at City Hall, where people can bring those big things and stick that in there that week, like it's just for cardboard. And so we'll come run a cardboard route and grab that for that exact kind of.
We used to have a recycle system here where we had big containers, wasn't it? Could we just do that instead of?
The problem with that is those become a dumping ground if you just
I know.
leave them for anything. Now, if
I
it
know.
says cardboard only and there's a camera that says the cops are watching, you're gonna get prosecuted, it's lit up all the time.
Right.
That works, but if you just have a box sitting out, it's gonna get TV.
No, I mean, yeah, we had
But
that
we-
cameras. for
Yeah,
sure.
but we could do something like we could do centralized, and that's cheaper than curbside recycling. We could do
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
but it's always a mess. It turns into a dumping ground unless it's got somebody there or well lit with a camera.
Did you have a question, Angela? Well, so if we were to ever enter into that contract, then it's mandatory for everybody.
Everybody's.
I'm just seeing like such a slim benefit to any of that, because I don't know, we can negotiate a cheaper price and say, hey, to the residents, hey, guess what? We got your cheaper garbage. But then by the time you add the fuel surcharge and.
There's no fuel surcharge with the contract.
Oh, the contractor.
That's the subscription side where you get those things. And my contract says spelled out in the contract, flat price.
Right.
This year, next year, it's gonna go up 3%. You have to that 3.1%.
I don't like the idea of mandating village residents to who is doing the garbage, even if it's a cheaper price, because, and I know.
Garbage, and if you're not putting it there, you're putting it somewhere else, and you're throwing it in somebody's dumpster or. I mean, you're being shady about it, I don't care.
Yeah, it's socialism in that everybody's part of it,
Right.
you know, and some people don't like that, but in many communities, they have their own public works and garbage departments. And everybody gets it, and it's all on your bill. It's just part of living in an organized community. You know, it's like when I try to use the example, when my kids get out of high school, I didn't stop paying school taxes. You know, it's part of us living together, or you know, I didn't have a fire, I didn't get a refund from the fire department. If I didn't have something happen in my home, the police were still there, the fire department was still there, the schools still make our community a better place. It's the same kind of concept.
I like that.
And when somebody doesn't want it, like I got in my hometown of Washington there, old ladies are mad, want your service. I'm like, you know, if you use the bathroom, we're providing the screening at the water treatment plant for free for the city. You're getting a benefit from that. When you put the couch out on cleanup day and we picked it up, you're getting a benefit. Why do you not pay when everybody else is paying a lower rate so that you all have the same kind of services? That's the argument. And I know that, and those will be the people that show up and force against it. I don't make any garbage. I take it to work, or I blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
And that's the hard part.
Yeah, this is something that the village has never looked at before, and well, for the longest time, we had a great service that pretty much did the entire community. I think there was a handful of people who didn't use their service, but and we were kind of spoiled actually for many years because they did a great job. And I just know when they went away and people were searching for, because they automatically sold their business to another company. And so everybody kind of rolled into that company. And I know there was, I mean, a zoo, people were going crazy with their garbage haulers, but you know, but they had the option to research it and go to who they wanted to. So, I mean, I do see some benefit in it because I know now that, you know, our other service is no longer with us. They have their days and their trucks, and that's pretty much who all you saw in the community. And now you are starting to see more trucks out on the roadways and at various different times of the day and night, because you have different services. So I see, you know, the potential of the extra wear and tear on our streets, and the potential of, I know I live where I live, we have an alley that they still actually come down and pick up our trash. And I got thinking about that, and it's like, well, what if we all decide to have different garbage haulers? So now throughout the week, we've got 4 different trucks coming down the alley, picking up 4 different homes on one alley. You know, that's even worse than a street. But my concerns also would be is, yes, the headaches of dealing with people taking away, they think they're getting their rights taken away from them by not picking out who they want. And also my concern is the extra work on our staff.
And you negotiate a low price and say, oh, but by the way, we got your garbage for only $18, but we're gonna charge you $22 because we have to cover the extra staff or the extra hassle, or build a slush fund, or, you know, whatever.
Yeah, that would be some of my biggest concerns is the headache that we would be taking on by doing it, because it'd be one more service that we're basically overseeing. And you know, if it was a substantial enough savings, you know, maybe the community would buy into it because they're saving a nice chunk of money. And, you know, if it was a good service and all that was great. But then once again, like I said, the staff then is going to be stuck with the billing and dealing with, they ultimately will get the phone calls and, you know, whatever that be. So I'm not opposed to looking at it and even maybe, you know, looking at what a price would be, but I think it's a discussion that we need to really think hard about, talk with your residents, you know, the people that you talk to. And I'm sure Facebook will be blowing up with all kinds of remarks on it too, but you know, I'm not opposed to entertaining the idea and looking at it. I think as you guys as trustees know your neighbors, know your people to talk to and just kind of get a feel for, because like I said, this is something we've never looked at before.
You got the information now, you can explore it and weigh the pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages. I mean, there's a lot of advantages. I mean, you named off like Cole said, well, we got 2, or I know we got at least 2 different haulers that come down there. There were 3. Seemed like every time I turn around, I hear a garbage truck out there.
So, I mean, that for sure would be the advantage of having that, as far as the wear and tear and the, how many trucks you have coming in a day, a week and all that, but.
And I could provide you some contact references in other communities, so you can talk to the public works people or the clerk, whoever to explain, even newer ones that are doing it, how they got into it, the headaches that came at first, and then like anything, it becomes part of the wallpaper, Which town?
Normal, Bloomington.
Bloomington Normal actually had their own.
Okay,
Normal
but
had
that's how they
public
do it,
works.
because I remember paying it with the water bill or whatever.
It's kind of a mixed bag on like, I mean, every community I've lived in has had their own. Contract, and every couple of years you bid it out, and. Where I was at before, Waste Management had a real corner on the market, there. That we bid it out, once when I was there, and the RFP is a little bit more involved than what you might suspect it is. There's quite a few details, but it's not rocket science to put together either. If you're uncertain about what you obviously, we measure things in dollars and then also how loud the complaints will be, right? So that's how we measure our decisions. So if you would like for us to put out some sort of survey or something to that effect to gauge opinions on it, I can, if you think about it and you want me to do that, I can try to put something together, if that helps you.
Do we still have access to Survey Monkey?
Yeah, we should, and if we don't, I can get it renewed, but I could also, for something that's this small, I could probably use something like, but then again, you want to kind of make sure it's a local respondents too, and Survey Monkey, you can do that, so. If you think about it and you want me to do it, I can try to figure it out, but if not, really, you just have to weigh if he's saying that it's going to be $18 a month, roughly, give or take. You have to weigh if the savings is worth it to you. So
There's no way to, I mean, if we could guarantee that 90% of the residents would want to do it. Can we opt out 10%? They just won't have.
Here's what I was thinking, so you're gonna get some people who aren't gonna pay it or whatever, and I'm not advocating for people not to pay it, it's gonna come out that way, but you're gonna save, how much are we gonna pay in May? $8,000, $9,000, what's it gonna cost for us to rent those?
8 dumpsters.
$8,000, let's just say. What do you pay now for the municipality to get picked up? Any kind of guess?
a couple hundred.
So a couple hundred. So if you had, like you said, 90% and you had 10% not do it, and you put a little bump on there as a slush fund or whatever, I still think it's going out way ahead. And you get these people who don't want to clean up their yards or have, whatever, just tell them, put your damn stuff out and they're going to pick it up, and hopefully they pay. But if they don't, you got extra money in there to pay for it.
So that's your decision point, what Max just brought up. So you all have to decide which one is.
Well, I mean, I'd love to get a bid and see where we're at.
Sure.
If you're saving people, you come in here and complain about the sewer bill, we could knock off 10, 12, I know that's not the best money going, but if you knocked it, if you knocked it in half of what you're paying now, you get garbage, there's a little bit of savings. So.
And you could, typically, if you're not good after bid, they get 3 or 4 bids, and in the RFP at the bottom, it says, we have the right to reject any and all these and toss them all out, and not do anything. Barry, Illinois did that last year. They all put in bids. And they decided not to do anything, but they wanted to see what this was really worth.
Have you ever approached Champaign or Van about this, or has anybody ever approached them?
We got crazy over there in terms of how it works. I mean, that's just how, there used to be 32 haulers, in my understanding, in Champaign at one time. It's down to 8. No, we talked to them about it. This is how they do it. It's open market. And a lot of that was to protect the small mom and pop haulers that were in town, that this was their business in that neighborhood. Those folks are going by the wayside. It's a capital intensive workman's comp. We got the state of Illinois up our backside because you have a landfill. I mean, it's a very expensive you know, the industry to be part of. It's hard, and it's hard to get people to work and do it. So all that costs money. So that's driving these mom and pop sites. I'm sorry to say, but that's just the way it's going. So there's going to be some point we'll probably all get regulated because there's going to be a few of us left. Waste Management, Republic, GFL, down the list.
Budget came in.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Appreciate
Okay, I'll stay in touch, follow up, let me know if you need anything. Happy to respond.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're gonna follow up and see what.
Yeah, I was just curious, so if you guys come in here and they do go to a contract, do you get better pricing if you incorporate the small subdivisions outside of the village?
No, we can only do a contract with the village for the people that are in it, part of it. Those folks out there wouldn't, there's no enforcement mechanism. Where if we were doing the billing here, we'd need an ordinance that the village could back us up, that people have to be part of it.
What if the outlying subdivisions wanted to join in on that though, somebody lived out there, can they get it? Will you pick them up too?
Not at that rate, no, they're gonna be like a subscription.
I know,
subscription
but
customer.
while your truck is out here, can they go ahead and go out there?
No, if you want to be part of the program, annex them into the community where they're legal, we're in a legal agreement under these
Okay,
contracts.
okay, but I'm just saying, if you're gonna do business in this town, there's people that are just down the street that aren't in our village.
Sure,
Could you,
sure.
I
No,
mean, can
they're
they
gonna be-
call you and say, hey, we pick our garbage up?
Well, that's what.
But they're not gonna get that rate. They're not gonna get our rate.
I'm not asking for that, no, but would you pick their garbage up?
They already pick up here. They pick up, Lonnie's across the street from me.
We do, good.
So you pay a lot more, so you would do a subscription.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm just saying, I'm not saying to give them the same price, but I'm just saying, while you're out here, you know,
sure.
cause I don't see any of your trucks out here.
I know we're in Champaign, so I wouldn't be surprised if we had subscription stuff here in town,
Okay.
not a lot.
Okay, that's all.
Not a lot. You might even, when
People will ask and they'll
I
say,
hear it's bad.
we have a lot more reason to do work here
Oh.
in the surrounding area
okay,
by coming here to
that's,
this town, sure.
that's what I mean.
So, and then, like I was saying, with the subscription people, they're basically down here, and you have your contract people, so. How big of a contract are we compared to somebody else? Do we get knocked down the totem pole too if you don't have enough drivers and our stuff doesn't get picked up?
No, you're a big valuable customer, any way you look at it.
That's it.
Because you're one big customer as opposed to one person in that subdivision. And we're still gonna give them credit for not picking them up that week.
Yeah,
We're gonna pick up the town, even if we're, because there's the fence on the ground, we're gonna come the next day.
I got you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks so much. Thanks. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right. Moving along here, we've got the next item is awarding the bids for the parks field maintenance. Everybody should have that in the packet. The breakdown of what those were. Is there any questions, anything that you want to discuss any further on that? I think it's pretty clear on what Joe's added in the packet.
I get out of here.
Thanks.
Welcome to the twilight. That's what I thought too, yeah.
Anyway, in the package, there's a breakdown on what both of the bids were. Any discussion?
Yeah, I got a little bit, I mean, I appreciate Joe's logic on that, and I think it's well founded. But the additional cost to go ahead with the other one, is that something we need to convey to the people that are renting the facilities? I mean, you know, their fee may go up, go ahead and do that, I mean, they're wanting them.
Yeah, I agree with how Joe spelled it out.
Yeah,
If nobody has any questions, and I'm gonna make a
I
motion, I would make it as Joe spelled it out, the way he
mean, I'm,
explained it, I'm all for it.
And I don't disagree with that, but I wanna know if we do that, then at the end of it, or if we do this for a couple years, then is it better than what we thought it was? I mean, is there a way to measure
But I agree.
where we're putting our
That's what
dollars?
they keep asking for, correct? And what
Right.
they keep saying is if we had him,
Yeah,
it'd be great, so
Yeah.
you gotta at least give, you can't. Rome wasn't built in a day, I think you gotta give him a couple of years, but I mean,
I think he knows what he's doing.
And we tried doing that the last couple of times with a couple other areas that he was allowed to do, and I'm not sure that, and I don't know if it was a good way to base it on, but I don't know that I noticed a noticeable difference between the two applications as far as one over the other. Maybe the fields there, I personally don't think it's gonna be good enough for them. I think we're gonna still be right where we're at, but I'm not opposed to giving it a shot, say, hey, look, we tried and a couple thousand more per, bid. The only thing that always concerns me is sometimes when you start letting the tail wag the dog, that, it could escalate to other things, but I just wanna make sure that, we're making the right decision and that and I'm not opposed to giving it a shot to see what happens and hopefully it is noticeably different. Or you might be opening the door for 10 more items to be added to that list of things that need to be done out there. And I guess you just have to weigh and see, is it making a difference? Is it not making a difference? What are we getting out of that?
Well, I just think I agree, I think we go with him for the sections that
You marked out.
Yeah, that he marked out, but I still think if we're not gonna have a rainy spring and rainy summer, if we're not watering out there, it's not gonna do anything. I mean, if you don't water when you're fertilizing, what's it gonna do? It's gonna be dead, it doesn't matter, so if we don't somehow get it watered on a regular basis, none of those fields are ever gonna come around.
So why are we spending money to do all
In hopes that it's a rain, right?
Right, for me.
Yeah.
I think that if anybody's he's gonna go out of his way to make sure he's better than most, I think. I think he's got an axe to grind out there to show that he can do what he says he can do.
So
And I could be proven wrong, but.
So at the end of this, can we have a discussion and talk about what is better, what is not better, what we spent, and is it worth our money? Is that something that we can do at the end of this? Does everybody
And I
agree
think
to
it's
that?
important that we all take a noticeable approach to go out and look ourselves and, and don't necessarily let the tail wag the dog. We need to pursue it ourselves or, get a hold of somebody that you trust and
That's what I think.
whoever does your yard or whatever, but, get somebody that you trust, if you're not capable or, of as far as figuring it out yourself, but, take them out there and say, hey, what do you think, and maybe get from the beginning to the, before and after kind of thing. And, or, even someone that's using the fields, someone that you trust their opinion on that and say, hey, what did you think? Cause I said, I think if you open the door to, 10 different people, you probably get 10 different answers. But, if you get someone that you trust and can trust their opinion, that might be, but I think we do need to follow up on it to see if it makes it a noticeable difference.
Can that be part of the motion?
Then you better make it.
Are there any other questions? So I make a motion that we award bids as stipulated, with part going to Spring Green and the other part going to Professional Outdoor Solutions. And then at the end of the season, we come together and discuss and talk about how it went and what we think and did we get the return on our investment.
I second.
Thank you, Vince.
Wait, just 1 second, I finish it. And when did you say you wanted to have that discussion?
When the season was over.
Next winter, about this,
Yeah.
about this time.
And that was you, Max?
I second.
I mean, yeah, that's what I meant. Painter,
Yes.
Wolfersberger.
Yes.
Cummings.
Yes.
Rapp,
Yes.
Page.
Yes.
5-0.
Okay, next item is request to subdivide property at the location of 1651 County Road, 2200 East. Once again, this is another piece of property that's within our 1.5 mile jurisdiction. I'll let Joe explain a little bit. You've got some of the information in your packet. I know a few years back, there was a similar request on the one at 1651 County Road. And I know the concern there that, because I think we ended up denying the waiver at that point because of the shared drive. Was there any discussion on what, because it's not a road that goes back there to those properties. So it would be a private drive, and I think that was the concern, and Mark might be able to answer that question better as far as the legal position on that. If you subdivide an area that has to rely on a private drive, how is that laid out? I know before with our other attorney, there was a concern with that. As far as what kind of agreement and things that they would have as far as being a shared drive, who owns the drive, who maintains the drive. You know, currently, I think there's 2 houses that share the drive. So you would be adding a third property. So there would be.
Up here at Gordon's, you think there's 2 houses that share?
Yes.
I think
There's
if
one
I'm
further
not-
down.
If I'm not mistaken,
No, it's down
I
there.
think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's the county's problem.
With the
But,
driveway.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily our problem, but maybe Mark, we're just talking about if we're okay with splitting.
Why you care is that you're concerned about eventually reaching properties that get annexed into the village. And you're worried about making sure that you don't inherit problems where you're gonna have to put in roads because somebody wanted to go the cheap and easy route, break their farmland up into little clunks of land, put some subdivision out there without making a real subdivision and following your subdivision ordinance. So you have a 1.5 mile extraterritorial jurisdiction where if they want to do something, you can force them to follow your subdivision ordinance or you can waive it. So a lot of times what you'll have is a big old fat farm and you've got an old farmhouse on there and they want to break off the farmhouse so it's a standalone property and then keep the rest of it all that's farm. That has no impact on you. That property area has a little driveway, goes out to the county road and you're not gonna have to do anything if you ever get to that property. But when they want to break that 40-acre tract into 8-acre farm, not put any roads or any kind of public improvements so that those can get served by sewer and water down the road, and then you start to wrap around them as a community down the road, then that's where you've got a problem. So the balancing test that you're working out is, hey, how close is this? If it's just a shade under 1.5 miles out, we're less paranoid than when it's closer to an area that we think will eventually expand to. And then the other question is, how intense is the use? Are they loading up a lot of houses on one property or, one section of land? And when that happens, we want to make sure that those properties are all on the county road so we don't have a road issue later. Here, I'm not familiar with how far out it is. Joe, how far out is this?
Off of the county road or away from,
Away from the village.
It's right next to city limits.
It's
When
right
you
on
come
the
in on
side.
74, they come in on 74, it's the house right off to the left
I see.
before the.
And
St. George.
that is further north of the other stuff that's just on the other side of the highway that's not annexed in.
It basically butts up to our corporate limits. Corporate limits are just north of I-74.
Okay, but does any of this land touch corporate limits?
and there's that lane that the mayor is referring to that separates it, but there's no houses in between it and.
All right, so in other words, it's really close to the city limits. That's catching our attention. We're probably more interested in that, right? You could just waive it and say, you know what, we'll worry about that another time when we eventually grow out that way and we'll just deal with it then. Or you could say, well, we'll let you do it, but we're gonna make you sign a pre-annexation agreement. So if you ever touch us within the next 20 years, you have to come into the city. And at that time, if we think that you've got a roadway, you'll have to pay for putting that in. And if you're supposed to have sidewalks under our subdivision ordinance, you'll have to put those in at that point when you come in. You could, depending on how much of the stuff you care about, you can put that in the annexation agreement. Then if they last longer than 20 years and never touch us, then that annexation agreement expires. We can't go longer than 20 years. So that would be something that you could consider if you think that's important.
I think by them just adding an additional lot in there, because it sounds like they're just considering one house on an acre lot. So that would just be 3 residents on that driveway. I'm sure it's working well for them now, and probably whoever might be interested in buying that might all be agreeable. But I know just 2 actually properties in St. Joe currently, and it's something that's evolved over time, but over on Castle Lane, there's a roadway that was once it was annexed in. It's too small for a street. It's basically a private drive, but it's now annexed in the village, and we can't get a snowplow down. So you've got some of those residents in there that are upset, why aren't we getting our driveway opened up? Well, it's because they don't have any place to put the snow and then be able to back out. So it makes it impossible. So we've got, a couple little areas over in that part of town. And then of course, Proctor Lane is really a private drive. And, you've got those duplexes along Proctor Lane that a lot of times it's not maintained. People think it's our street. It's not our street, it's a private. And, so, that's what you can conceivably be inheriting. I'm not saying that it would. I mean, like I said, doing something like what Mark's talking about, doing something, so that over time, if we did inherit it, we'd have the option to maybe make it wider so that, our city trucks or something could do there and open it up if we became responsible for the snow and plow. And like I said, if we never did, it stays the way it is, but.
It's that big.
Did the county turn, is this the same place as what 74 was?
Like if you're going.
Did they turn down because it was a private road?
It's to
But they maintained up to that, but they had, they didn't go grant that because of being a private road. And there was some stipulations, they were gonna have to do something to the road. That's been a few years ago.
Yeah, because I can't remember. So county has something to say about it, but I can't remember, because I know Joe, our attorney, raised some concerns about the shared drive becoming a problem, and it's, right now, I guess we'd have to rely on Mark's opinion on, right now with the subdivision rights that we have as far as waiving it, we just have to look at what we would be stuck with in the future. The county may or may not look at it, and if we turn it, waive it, and it goes back to the county might look at it. I'm not sure.
It's all right.
What the county does.
There's some thin spell. All right, so our crack IT department.
IT, you have
It used
been
to be
changed.
AT department, but it's now the IT department.
I did
It's
fix.
explaining that we've got a house here, we've got a house there, and they're wanting to put this there. And that there aren't any roads around here, so in order for these guys to get to the road over here, they've got to take this private drive that runs over to there. If you're okay with that, I'm okay with that. Most communities wouldn't be okay. And they would probably have an annexation agreement that would talk about having this a certain size so that a fire truck could get down. having it paved, having it maintained at the cost of the property owners. And there'd be a mechanism where they would have to have a agreement between themselves that they'd have to prove up to us that shows that they've got the agreement that defines that. What I would, if you're okay with it and you think that that's too much work and you think it's all fine, that's what you got elected to decide. If you think that you want to more seriously look at it, I would have the village engineer look at it and make a recommendation.
I think that's very warranted because if you think like the paintball place, I mean, they had a few over that drive there. I mean, it's just like, I'd rather see something where it's defined, you know, because I think that's why it got turned down. I think the county could turn it down.
Yeah, I don't remember that part, but I knew there was some discussion and issues because of the drive. I just couldn't remember who did what, on that decision, if it was us who didn't, or if we waived it and then the county.
No, we
still
didn't
said
waive it. We
no.
turned it
I
down.
don't-
We turned it down.
Did we turn it down? Okay.
And Joe, neither of these is in the village now.
No, that dotted
And
line.
here's
is-
the, here's
yeah.
this, here's the interstate and then we're village over here.
No, village up above the interstate,
Yeah, so our line actually is that little pink line.
right, the dotted pink line right there above I-74 is
Right.
corporate limits.
Right, so this is the village down here, so, yeah, so the other thing you could think about doing is requiring them to annex. And you can tie it to the other properties too, that would be a pretty common technique. You know, we don't have any utilities on the north side of the interstate yet, right? So we could have an annexation agreement that says you won't annex right now, but you'll annex whenever we get our utilities up there, and then you'd have to force them to annex. That would be a common technique, but you don't have to do it. Just because I say other places do it, doesn't mean you have to do it, but that's a pretty common thing to do. Because once they're annexed, then when this wants to develop, it's got to annex to you, and that's how you grow. And if you don't, well, and if you don't do it right, and then this is wanting to happen, then we've got to have a pre-annexation agreement to happen, but it can't annex to us because it's not touching us. Now, if it's touching us here, we're okay. So maybe that's not a great example, but this gets subdivided and we're just talking about that chunk over there. Yeah.
Gonna need a lot of dirt.
I mean, if you're not careful, what ends up happening is you get a big subdivision like Shire Fields on the west side of Champaign where I live. And it's too big, even if it gets surrounded by the city of Champaign, they can't annex it because they didn't figure this out a long time ago. I think we follow Mark's advice.
Anyway, but that's what you guys, that explains all of that on. You guys have to
Okay, I'm going this way. I'm looking at insurance too. I learned over time, I'll forget by the next meeting.
Joe, did he tell you, I mean, I was wondering if you want to do something like that for like his son to build a house on it, you know?
It's,
Did he tell you?
he didn't tell me who, but his intent is to subdivide it and sell it so somebody can build a house on it. He said that he knows somebody he thinks would do that. He didn't say if it was son or stuff.
What he said last time was it was too much for him to take care of with his health.
Right.
Yeah, I think he was wanting to unload some of it just because.
He
it was
said he couldn't
hard
take care of it.
Maintain it.
I mean, I know son teaches here, I don't know if he's doing it, I don't know his living situation. I did not want it.
So, if you, so.
And there's another house at the end of that lane.
Yeah,
right?
but it's kind of, from, there's, the river is right back behind it, so
Right.
it's pinned in by
Right.
the river, that property and his house, so it's not like there's a lot of room for it to subdivide further.
Right.
But so if you, Mark explained the general decision point for you, before we spend any resources on like engineers, I'd like to know what your, you know, guts telling you. I don't wanna, if you're not wanting to do it, I don't wanna have the engineers do anything with it, or if you're, or if you wanna sit and think about it, you can do that too. There's no reason you have to do anything today. I mean, you know, it's been a couple of years doing, so.
My God, there's like Gordon's not gonna want to annex, if that means, if that's the other way to sell it, I don't think he's gonna want to annex.
Yeah.
Because he's been there for so long.
Right.
We didn't have to till we get it over there, and we haven't got it there yet.
Right. Yeah.
And insurance signed a pre-annexation agreement before he goes, nursery. And he's still not annexed, so.
Yeah, I mean, a pre-annexation agreement might be something that kind of satisfies some of our concerns. If something was to happen that, you know, the village goes that direction and gets utilities over there, then if we do inherit it and it becomes part of the village, then we do have that option to make it right, so that we're not stuck with, you know, a private drive that could eventually be a problem, you know, because I said, sometimes in those situations, I'll agree with the right people in it for now. But, you know, 20 years from now, they sell it to somebody else, and next thing you know, you got someone blocking the driveway or not maintaining, I don't know, because there's no HOAs or anything to, you know, work on. You know, there's not an official subdivision there, so, you know, even then, sometimes you can have a subdivision agreement that who's gonna open the driveway from snow, or who's gonna put gravel in there come springtime, and all those things that, you know, right now, yeah, it's out of our hands. But it could conceivably become our problem. So, yeah, like Mark said, that's what you guys get paid the big bucks to decide, so. Cause I mean, I understand why he's wanting to do it, I totally get it. But I'm just laying the facts out there, so if you want to just delay it, think about it.
I think we let him do it with the pre-annexation agreement. If he wants to doesn't want to do that, we can revisit it again.
So you wanna put that in the form of a motion then?
All right, motion to allow Gordon and Holly to subdivide with a pre-annexation agreement.
And then you authorize the administrator to consult with the village engineer.
To determine what standards are required, right?
That sounds good.
Yeah.
That's the, yeah.
Your motion is to authorize the village administrator to consult with the village
To
engineer
determine what standards are needed to be included in the pre-annexation
to
agreement.
determine what standards are needed.
To be included in the pre-annexation agreement.
But I'll float this to the first, and then if he, you know, is absolutely against it, then we'll know, okay, there's nothing more to talk about.
I'll second the motion.
Get some goats. The fence, turn out the goats, let me, I just. I'm just kidding. I like goats. All right, the second.
Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry, oh, yeah, I gotta vote on, sorry, I'm trying to get to.
Yes.
Cummings,
Yes.
Pratt,
Yes.
Page,
Yes.
Painter,
Yes.
5-0.
Now,
I'm sorry.
that's fine, now I will proceed. The next one is another one that's outside of, and this one was a little tricky, it seemed like I vaguely remember something about this property too, that regional planning had gotten a hold of me about, I don't know, was something goofy out there as far as it looked like it was subdivided, it wasn't subdivided. I don't know, but this is just a little bit further to the north of this property, along the slab, isn't
I
it?
thought it was west of town.
Is it west of town? So maybe it is a different property than I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it's west of town.
Okay.
It's on 150, right?
Yeah.
So.
He's
It's 2072 County Road.
It's close to the, it's not, whatever the grain elevator is called now, not grain elevator, but the seed place.
Oh,
What is it?
Cortiva.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, it's.
Oh, okay, so yeah, this was different. One I was thinking that was north of town.
Yeah.
That was a kind of a weird configuration as far as they thought it was subdivided, but it wasn't subdivided, and regional planning was trying to figure it out, and I don't know that they ever got that one figured out, so. So yeah, so this west of the seed plant.
Yeah. And this gentleman thought this was all taken care of back in And if you read the email exchange that I included in the packet, it explains a lot of the background with it. The county approved his request to put solar on a ground mounted solar array. On this lot that he thought that he created years ago. And the county advised him that the subdivision request had not been approved by the village at that time. So his approval for that ground mounted array is pending a subdivision request being approved. There's an email exchange between John Hall, the zoning administrator at the county, and I that outlines some of the details of it. So I mean, really, it's kind of a, this one isn't near anything, but in the same thought, you are, you know, not terribly far away. I mean, so it's up to you. I mean, it's not, if you need more information, I can get it. If you don't.
So basically, they need it subdivided off from the house, or?
Yes, if you look at this right here, this is the original. And then there's the new lot that's being created. Does that make sense? Because it didn't make sense to me the first time I looked at it, because it wasn't a very clear like picture, but this is what it was, this is what they're wanting it to be, basically. It looked like the house never actually got subdivided either like they thought. So the house is still on that one, which is unfortunate for them. I think they believe that it's that separate lot like they anticipated.
Right.
So does that make sense, or is that?
I wonder, are they asking to separate that at the same time, or making it
Yes.
separate, so there would be basically two subdivisions, then one for the solar field and one for the house?
When he bought it with a realtor, he thought that the realtor could take care of all this. What was explained to me. And then when he got to the county for this approval process, this company that's putting in the ground mount array, the county told him that he can't do it until the subdivision request is approved. So he was under the assumption for all these years that it was just done. It obviously had not been. So, I mean, it's up to you. If you have any more questions, I'm happy to find out.
Okay, the county approved it, but I noticed they made notion or made mention about the best prime farmland. Wasn't a concern with it, but they still approved it.
They still approved it.
I think that's once again one of those things where I'm kind of curious, you know, we made that quasi agreement with them about the solar fields within our 1.5 mile growth zone. And with the state having the rules made that basically you have no say so. And county's rules, I don't know if that's partly that's what's playing into this.
I think the size and scope of this project isn't the same as
The smaller one.
yes, this is a smaller. It's a smaller ground mount system. It's not like a big, you know, community solar, you know,
Right.
array.
Because I said it would still be 45 acres of ground within our, just on the other side of the seed plant, then that potentially will be solar field for 40 years, but I don't know that you can actually stop that at this point right now anyway. So.
Well, we're talking about doing the same thing out by the sewer plant. I don't.
So you all want.
Do you have any concern? I mean, I don't see any detrimental reasons that we, you know, for us to not approve it. a waive.
There's nothing that I see, but I don't know, I don't know if Mark has had a chance to look at it at all. Is there anything that you see that we should be looking at, Mark, or are you comfortable with it?
Well, what he's doing will be on the road,
Yes,
and he's pretty far out. I'm trying to,
he's just west of that, the. Cortiva, yes.
so that means what, how far away is he from our boundary?
Not very.
Not very far, no, because our boundary goes across the salt work, so. He's somewhat close. This one is really, it's just what you all find as a priority. I don't. I could live either way with it, so it's really your opinion and your thoughts on it.
We currently are annexed up to the seed plant.
Yes.
So just on the very east side of the seed plant is where we're currently annexed into. So,
Right.
yeah.
Joe, I'm looking at the second page. You've got this little.
Yeah,
So he's saying that this, what we had. When he's done,
we'll go from that and we'll go to. Yes. In the house, I think he originally thought the house was.
so this is just, what is this?
The house,
That's where the house goes,
yes.
and it'll sit on this lane.
It'll be its own lot, it looks like.
This will be its own lot in the middle of this stuff.
That's the way I understand it.
So we're going back to what we already were just doing before, where they're gonna have to private drive to get to the road.
Yes, to serve the one house.
Yeah.
But you're right, if they could at some point, if we run the necessary infrastructure over there, develop that. So.
Isn't there a house already on that property?
There is, yeah, and.
So he already has it.
Building.
He's not building a house, no, he's just putting a ground mount solar array on this new lot that he's wanting to break out, but.
So then his house is,
This small one.
it is the little rectangle.
If you look right
here's the solar array.
East side.
In this general, yeah,
Why does he need to have to subdivide to put the solar array on it?
Something to do with this lease, right, for the.
so, yeah, it's it's a.
So it's not.
It's a-
So it's
So
a
he doesn't own any of the land
different
around
parcel,
the house, right?
Yeah, so it's a some state program.
He owns
It's
the
Boston.
majority of this land over here, I think. But he wants to turn that into the array, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that, are you seeing?
Yeah, I see the little picture in the little box.
Yeah.
Alright, so.
That's the
Anybody
video
else
of the
now
program program.
Yes, is this currently part of this bigger tract right now?
Yes,
I think so, yeah.
yes, because if you look at the original, you'd be a part of that right there, basically.
So. So in theory, he's part of all one track, then he can go to the road.
There'll be a shared driveway with the solar array and him.
Is he selling the land to the solar array folks?
That's what I was wondering. Just a long-term lease.
Long-term lease.
Similar to what you
includes, so he includes him from just doing that as it sits, the county is saying that.
I think they, in their language, they want it on its own.
Yeah.
Lot.
Something.
Yeah, it's funny because if you look at the plat map, which I don't know how old this one is, but
Well, I'll toss this one out. Okay, we'll let you have 2 lots, but we'll require you to have a covenant that says you can't sell one lot without the other. That gives them 2 lots and ties it all together, and it's not subdividing it more reality. If you care, if you don't care, then just say we don't care, let them do what he wants to do.
Yeah, it's funny because when you look at the plat map, it almost looks like the house should be part of the piece that's to the west.
That's correct.
Yeah, and then the piece that he apparently bought, the 46 acres, looked like it should have been subdivided all by itself to begin with. If you look at the plat map, it's kind of weird that the house even juts out on its own little piece. It's weird.
It's just fun stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
So glad to this time.
We can do it any way you all really want to do it. It's
I personally have no problem.
I don't
And putting a solar array on there and making some money and it's no skin off my back.
you all want to,
Based on where it is,
Yeah.
it's not like this, we're not gonna be developed.
you want to tie it to what Mark suggested for some language on that. For tying the 2 lots together.
The other one I was more passionate about because it was right on our
Right.
border, right?
Right, this is like.
But this isn't, but it's actually closer than what.
I mean, if he's leasing it, it's gonna be on there for probably 30
But
years anyway.
yeah, and you
right?
do want to be careful because you can be obligated to take the utilities and stuff out to them. So there's some gray area law where it's not just a free ride that you annex and then you have to wait till we get out to you. Now, our annexation agreement says we don't have to hook you up to anything until we get out to you. And you've annexed, so we make it a condition in there, but the courts are kind of, hey, city, at some point, you gotta step up to the plate, and take care of those folks, right? So, that's why when it's really close to my border or right on my border, I think that's kind of an easy call. The further out I get, then I'm not as excited.
Should we get consistent?
I'll start now.
So, yeah, I guess,
Well, one for a house, one for solar. I think they're 2 totally different things.
Well, this is a pre-existing house and you're not getting a new house out of it.
Right.
That's what distinguishes it from the other one. You're gonna break it into 2 parcels and have an extra house to serve.
I'll throw it out there. I'll make a motion to approve it. The way it is.
we would probably need to come up with some sort of resolution with an actual.
How about direct you to work with the attorney too?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll do that. We'll come back to
We'll do one of those.
Yeah.
Do we need a vote on that or?
No, I think if you polled yourselves in that direction you want to go in, I don't have a problem doing that. I mean, is the majority of you want us just to do that or?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I love it when we do the direct.
Let's direct most of these.
Okay, so we don't need to vote or anything on this, basically a straw vote kind of.
Yeah, not yet. We'll have.
Consensus. Okay, on to old business, Joe has put in our, it wasn't in your packet, it was presented to you here on table. He was instructed last meeting to pursue some additional information in regards to other municipalities with solar. That information is in front of you.
Freeport's city manager and I were not able to connect. We almost caught each other today. We missed each other by 15 minutes, so we he didn't want to respond by email on it, but I can. I have met him, before numerous times, so I can always.
If it's okay with the group, I would just soon table this one more meeting because I know Tammy was kind of very interested in all this stuff and. Whereas, I mean, what I read on there, I'm still pretty adamant to buy it, and I think that what you found out kind of backs that up. I mean, it backs it up that people are happy whichever way they went. but the people who bought it, I think, were pretty happy that they bought it and didn't have any regrets. And the one people said, what, 12 years in and they haven't. Did I read that right? They haven't had any maintenance issues whatsoever, except for a couple of bad panels at the very beginning. So, but I know Tammy was pretty interested in it, and I hate to make any decision without her being it.
She is on Zoom, but she can't vote.
Right, she can't vote.
And I think between looking over the information that Joe gave you with the questions, I think it's important also to review through the packet. I know some of you new ones have not ever done a budgeting process with us before. So I think as far as the budget and borrowing the additional money, type of thing that I want you guys to seriously look at that on what that means. This would be borrowed against our debt service to the sewer plant because it's strictly for the sewer, so that those are two separate funds. So if you have questions in regard to the budgeting and what that would look like, I mean, you've got the comparison charts as far as what it would cost to finance it, as far as what the payout would look like and all that, but I would encourage you to kind of look at those dollars and cents there too, because I think that's important. But
basically, I think the payment's gonna be covered by what we would have paid for the electric bill anyway, correct? They're pretty darn close.
that's what it's projected to do,
Yeah.
yeah.
So.
Anyway, so we'll move on from there. If you have any other questions directly for Joe after looking through the material, please contact him, or if there's anything else you'd like for him to dig into or to ask, and he'll get that information from Freeport so that you'll have that, so. Okay, the next item on old business is budget discussion. Joe, what do you need for that, basically?
I give you just a request, so you have the original, we've gotten quotes for the ball diamond lights. And, so if you all are, I mean, I haven't got a consensus yet, but if you all feel that from just individual conversations, I feel like we've talked that the ball diamond lights are important to make sure that we have to replace them. So if you're okay, we can all go ahead and in the draft budget have replacement of at least one field worth. But then you have the other items, the pitcher's mound, and then the pickleball tennis resurfacing. And then you also got a request from the soccer program regarding the goals. So if you agree with that statement that there's a consensus on replacing at least one field worth of lights, then I can program that in. And you're looking at around 30,000 for a budgetary estimate. Is that? Do I have it? Is that?
We've got to do it.
Yeah.
We just gotta fight the bullet.
As far as the pitcher mount, one thing in the small meeting you ran too, did you notice those, you might talk with their administrator, they have portable pitching mounts on some of the fields where they'd be conducive for both. I don't know, that's something like it would cost.
They have one right now, don't they?
And they don't.
Yeah, they borrow it from, I think, Gimke, or I don't think we've ever owned it. I think it's always been borrowed.
But
and I think that's what they don't like it.
But that's, that, yeah, they want the,
One of the previous proposals or.
yeah, they want the real mound, they want the.
And actually, when I spoke, and I'll reach out to him again to see what he might have in mind, but I know he, for one, it might be such a thing that we could do some cost sharing on that too, if some of them really want. Because basically Diamond 4 is a baseball diamond. That's what the intent was when it was built. But that might be such a thing that I know he showed some interest in, because the older kids aren't being allowed to play at the high school any longer because the high school's out at the new field. And so they don't really have a good home for the older kids. So I know that would be very attractive to them, but it might be such a thing with, with the pool baseball players there, that it might be that, you know, we could do some cost sharing. So I'll reach out to him and see, in one of my conversations with him, he just kind of,
Is this with Greg you're talking about?
yes. So, and I know he's been very helpful in the past on a lot of things, so.
Do we have consensus on the ball diamond lights? Is that so Max is in favor of it, is you? Okay, sorry, I just wanted to make sure that we passed that.
I'm really not that stressed in anything, that's right, don't worry about it, I'll use another one.
So that's good as your purple.
Kind of like
Um,
pressing part of my tools here.
But so I guess if the mayor's gonna look into the mail question, so you still have. You know, the pickleball / tennis resurfacing, that quote that we got was the. $35,000 figure. And then you have this request from.
What was the request for the pitching now? What was the dollar amount for that?
Well, it depends on which one. There's one that was, yeah, there was one that was as much as 18,000.
I think it was 10 and 18.
18,000?
Yeah. I think it was 10 and 18.
Now, did I mistake when I thought Alan said he could build one much cheaper than that or something? Am I wrong or?
I
did
thought
read
Greg
that?
had said he might help out with something, so.
So that, what Greg indicated to me, he could help out on something, but I didn't go into any detail of that conversation on what that might mean, so.
That Alan does a lot of those. He's very good at it too.
Yeah, well, he's got that contract out there now, right? So, I mean, maybe work with this on.
Well, I said maybe if we could pin down a price, you know, between the two of them too, and see what they.
I can't believe one of those little rubber pads is that much.
Max has never pitched.
Finished.
All right, do you need any more information on the budget items there? So,
I mean, I guess is there any more thought wise on, I mean, are you okay with doing the resurfacing? Because we can, I gotta start throwing some of these things in there to help.
So-
Gracious, but the service.
I'm just gonna say, here we go, we're talking about spending all this money for the kids. And we don't have money coming in.
Right.
And that is my concern, and I'm sorry, I hate it. I wish we had all this money in the bank and we could spend it and we could do it but we're not in that position. So that's my thought's not gonna change on that.
The $15,000 worth of income you get during the year is not gonna cover that $30,000 of lights,
No.
or 35 for resources.
It's not.
Or was it just 21,000 for the,
When we start doing for one, then we're gonna have to do for all, or we don't be consistent, like Max said, why should we start now? So that.
Well, we gotta do something with those lights, because I mean, they're costing you money too. If you can put up LED, then you're gonna save some money out
Well,
there.
you said you can't get the bulbs anymore. For those.
I mean, I'm just saying, you gotta go to LED, and then that's gonna save some money out there anyway. There might be some incentive. Now, there was one time when I was talking to my guy about changing out to LED, and he tried to turn me on to another program. I think I'll try to help out and see if there's anything, an incentive from Ameren to kind of, to go to LED and see if they wouldn't pitch in some money. He had a name of a guy who he told me to call him. I'll give him a buzz. And then what the one people said, maybe they could pitch in to do something good for our community.
They'll be here at the next meeting to talk with you all, so they can give you a rundown on that.
and I said, and you know, as far as the tennis court / pickleball court, you know, part of that's ongoing maintenance too, because I know it's kind of been on the budget to try and get done in the last couple budgets. And I know the 1 year, Mike was having trouble getting a hold of the one person that he used in the past to surface it, and I think since then he's gotten a hold of somebody else, but you know, that's one thing, you know, we want to be careful too, just like lights are no longer, you know, but you know, we don't want to let our infrastructure that we have to go to get in any worse shape too, because we're not maintaining it, so. Yeah, unfortunately, you have that also to consider.
So
Has
you're,
anybody approached the high school at all about kicking in any money for that, since their tennis team uses those courts?
The tennis club does not use those courts.
Oh, they don't?
They go to Atkins.
Oh, didn't they
Yeah.
used to?
No.
When they first started?
I
When they
think
first
they
started,
did.
when they
They've
first started,
yeah, I think they were doing some, so I don't know, kind of on their private time using them, but, anyway.
I got a question. When the village put that sport complex in, what was the point of it? I mean, because I guess we knew, everybody knows that there's accruing costs on baseball diamonds and football fields. Like, I guess what was the reason behind even putting that in if what it's gonna cost to maintain it isn't what we want it to do? I know that parks,
That's a big, nobody thought that far ahead.
well, like, so I know parks are a money pit, you know, and
Yes.
I'm on a soapbox. We spent $15,000 on a hotel study. That would have covered what?
Yeah, I think the thought behind at that time, because they said I was a brand new trustee at that point, but was that we had the telecommunication tax that we were receiving. And that was my understanding that that was supposed to pay for the bond payment and then eventually be money for the parks as far as future maintenance and so on and so forth. And unfortunately, whatever changed within the law, that has changed to where that money keeps dwindling every year. It has something to do with the formula on what actually is being taxed, because the internet came in and you know, the telecommunication things is, you know, changed what it was back then, that those items are no longer being taxed because we're getting our telecommunications through another avenue that's not taxable. So, and that's what we're trying to avoid now in the future with things, is to make sure we do have a revenue source to, you know, do a better job. Because just like with our equipment, since we've had Joe on board, we have a plan, because that would be kind of the same way we handled equipment for years. It's like, oh gosh, we need a dump truck this year. And there was no planning ahead or having a capital, you know, plan on what your equipment was and how long you could expect it to last, and you know, when you might need to replace that. It would just be like all of a sudden you're talking about replacing, and I'm just using dump truck as an example, because you know, you got backhoes and you got everything else. And so anyway, but that's one thing we're trying to do a much better job at, is planning ahead for all of our infrastructure and equipment and everything, that we do have an idea or a plan for when that needs to be maintained or replaced. So
on top of a sewer infrastructure that is decades beyond the time that should have been
yeah,
financed and replaced, so there's.
But that's on a different budget, right?
It is, but it's, you know, it's, we look at it holistically. So.
There's a lot of catch up going on, because there was no like foresight, you know, I mean, not, you know, I mean, like, how are we gonna keep this up? How are we, like the slide, you know, all that has to be replaced.
yeah, it, you know, it helps to have a bigger plan or a bigger picture kind of a thing. And I think that was the area we were lacking somewhat in, and we're just trying to do a better job at it. So anyway, so are we done with the budget discussion for now?
Yeah.
Okay. Joe, you have your updates in the your report with the Public Works report in front of you, as far as updates on what Public Works has been doing. Joe has updates on some progress there on various different things. You want to highlight anything?
If you have any questions, let me know.
Okay. Mark.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Tiffany?
Nope.
No. Like I said, the Public Works report is in that report that you have. The only thing that I want to report on, I don't know if any of you guys have been kind of following the governor's budget address, that he had announced this week. There's a few concerning items that could affect the village and a lot of municipalities. The number one thing, and IML is fighting it from the get-go, is the 1% grocery tax that they're wanting to, save money for, which is a great idea. When they did that, I think it was during COVID, the state reimbursed the municipalities for that amount of money that was not coming in for sales tax. But what he's got in his budget currently is that tax would, go away for the consumer, but there would be no reimbursement for municipalities. So we could conceivably take a hit on our sales tax, because we do have a grocery store, that all of that, we would not get that sales tax. So that could conceivably affect our budget, as far as our sales tax goes. So that's something that the IML is recommending, to notify any of your legislators and things to say, hey, do what you can, but there was a couple other mandates there that, if you read through your IML magazines and things, they kind of give you legislative updates. But there's a couple other mandates that could negatively affect us as far as how we do things. I know there's one potentially on the horizon in regards to how we do our building inspection kind of thing. And that could potentially kick in the first of next year. Is that right, Joe? We're not quite sure how that would affect us, on what more, but we conceivably would, and I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad idea, just like we kind of talked about before at the last meeting about, being a little more involved in building inspections. But of course, it's going to cost the village, because then you're going to have to hire someone that's certified properly to do that. At what level the village or the state is going to mandate us to do that is kind of in the air right now. So anyway, so just a couple things to be aware of. That's, I think, all I have for now. So, trustees.
I have a question about this. I know we need a revenue stream for Parks and Rec without a doubt, but like, for instance, this IBEW tournament that's coming, that's gonna bring 500 people, what are they paying for that?
It's a per field, per day charge. And I have to look at our fee schedule, but I think I can get you a copy of what they paid last year. It'll be the same as what it is this year. But it's, I want to say around $1,000.
Total?
Yes, but I don't want to,
that's close enough for a ballpark. I mean, as opposed to like whatever it costs for somebody to use a field for like one game, then you have a structure for what it is for like the entire day, and for all for each field.
Yeah, it's the per field per day, and
Right.
there's also the concessions charged with that.
Yeah.
But it's still minimal.
Oh, I know, but I'm just thinking, if we could, get more tournaments here, perhaps, if we just don't.
And that's always kind of been the desire, and I know a few years back, we kind of negotiate or went back and forth with our fee structures and things at the parks, because you want to be careful, that it's not too much for our people to use the parks and things. But when it comes to these tournaments and things, yes, you don't want to be too cheap on that side, but that was a debate back and forth at that time, and we come up with this fee structure. And yeah, if we got more out there, that would be most definitely. I mean, that's the whole idea of having it out there. I'd love to see something going on out there every single weekend in the summer.
And then what about this soccer stuff that's attached here? Are we supposed to be making a decision about this?
It's part of the budget.
It's automatic, that's,
Yeah, it's part of the budget items. So, but any other questions, comments? That answer your questions a little bit? Yeah, you can look at the fees, he can show up to you on what we currently charge for all those things, so, and how it's broken down. So you might find it interesting. So, all right, if there's nothing else, is there a motion?
You make a motion to do it.